Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We're here to talk Premier League. It is week 8 on the 31st of March 2022. But first, before we look at week number 8, we're going to have a quick look back at night number 7 in Rotterdam. Michael van Gerwen not winning the final in front of his home fans and actually getting beat in a cracker against Joe Cullen. We had Gary Anderson kicking off multiple times throughout the evening and really boisterous crowd giving it to enemy number 1, Gerwin Price. So, Pieman, what did you make of night number 7?
Yeah, thoroughly entertaining night once again. Big win for Joe Cullen, his first win in the format, and he certainly hasn't been disgraced in the previous 6 weeks. But what a relief it'll be for him to get that win under his belt, because as we've said in a previous video, most players have now gone up there and got that win, and you don't want to be one of those players that's still waiting for their first win at this stage, I don't think. And just mentally for Cullen, that'll have done him the world of good. I mean, to beat MVG in Rotterdam in a very partisan crowd is one thing, but to do it not playing your best, even more impressive. Cullen throughout the night didn't average above 93, but he just seemed to take his checks out at the right time. He seemed to hold himself together in the big moments. A 6-5 win against Anderson where he had to dodge a few match starts. A 6-5 win against MVG. And Wright not at his best, but he did a professional job on him. And I think this is the Joe Cullen we're dealing with now. It's a really big tournament in his career, this, I think, because he gets to play these top 8 players every week, gets loads of experience of playing them in packed out arenas. And he's shown that he's got the bottle and the character to grind out results as well as to play fantastic darts. So, yeah, big night for Joe Cullen. Michael van Gerwen keeping up his good form. And, yeah, standard Gary Anderson kickoff just to add a little bit more entertainment in. It was a good night.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically every time Gary Anderson loses nowadays, he kicks off. But maybe one to cover on another video, Pieman. So, like I say, looking forward to this Thursday. The draw, as we know, is already predetermined, and who's throwing first. I really do like that format and how it kind of circles round, and different players play first and play last, and they all get a fair chuck at it. But yeah, first game up this Thursday in Birmingham. Van Gerwen against James Wade, as you would expect. The table topper, Michael van Gerwen, is best price 4-11 currently, and James Wade is in the region of 12 to 5. It's actually top versus bottom. Can all change very quickly, as we know, with 5 points on offer to the winner. And Wade, one of the only 2 people that haven't yet to win a final, but he has made one, and he can always make it competitive. James Wade, as we know.
Yeah, especially over this shorter format as well. It's very hard to discount Wade entirely. That week he did get to the final, week 4. He played excellently, to be honest, all night, averaged 102 in beating Peter Wright, and then averaged 100 in the final, losing to Gerwin Price. And to be frank, he had 2 3-figure checkouts and could have easily won that match. Price was just on another level.
Tonight, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So, I mean, no shame in that. That'll have hurt Wade, to be honest, because he played well enough to win that night. And yeah, since then, he's just been on the wrong end of a few results. And once again, last week, missed a match start against Peter Wright. That could have gone very differently. I think it was a 120, and he just went below on the top. So, yeah, you can't rule Wade out categorically, but Van Gerwen, he's really back in the groove, isn't he? The best we've seen him in a couple of years, I would suggest. And winning breeds winning, and Michael Van Gerwen is very much a confidence player. He's always said he likes to win tournaments, however small they are. We saw him crying after winning a European Tour event last year, which pretty much sums up where he's been in terms of the winner's circle recently. But he's right back at it. This Premier League has done him wonders. I think got in a bit of a groove, won 2 nights already. And he won a Pro Tour, obviously travelling to Europe for the Pro Tour. And it was a little bit of a reduced field. Some players that we would expect to be there weren't there. Some that we wouldn't expect, Gerwin Price, Gary Anderson, obviously didn't travel. But it was still a decent field. Van Gerwen won it and then was quick to call everyone who didn't turn up lazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this is getting a little bit back to peak Van Gerwen. I think the way he's conducting himself in his interviews, the way he's playing, the way he's going about his business generally. And I'm really struggling to make a case for Wade here other than he is dangerous. You can't discount him over the short format, but you'd be surprised if Van Gerwen didn't win this game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would be, like you say, Pieman, in current form. Van Gerwen is going through and he's ticking a few boxes. That tournament you referred to last year, where I think Brooke was in the final, that wasn't even a Pro Tour event. That was one of those Masters invitational type things. And and there was tears after that. Not even a proper tournament in my eye. He's ticked a couple of these nights off, and as you say, he likes to win no matter how small the tournament. And they will see this as little mini tournaments, and no one wants to lose, but particularly Van Gerwen, who want to win as many of these nights as possible. And then he's won the Pro Tour over the weekend in Germany. First time Van Gerwen's won a Pro Tour event since 2020. Didn't win one at all last year. There was 24 chances for him to win one, and he didn't win one at all. I mean, there was one year a few years ago where he won over half of the Pro and European Tour events. So, but yeah, he's ticking a few boxes, and we're heading back to the big TV tournaments are going to be on the horizon before long at Blackpool and Dublin, etc. So yeah, you can't see past Van Gerwen in that first quarter final for me. The second quarter final, I think, well, you could say this every week, the crackers, but Joe Cullen is against Gerwin Pro. Favourite for the second quarter final. Joe Cullen winning last week, as we know. Gerwin Price, he won one of the European Tour events over the weekend on Saturday, and he played well. Of course, he did to win it. But in the interview after Pieman, and 2 or 3 weeks ago, he had the week off the Premier League because he's got this hand injury. Now I've had swollen hands and broken hands. His hand in the interview with Dan Dawson on Saturday looked swollen as heck. Despite winning on Saturday, he didn't get anywhere near winning it on Sunday, and there's no surprise. But it's got to be an ongoing issue for Gerwin Price.
Yeah, and to be honest, Gerwin Price, we saw him win that final against Wade, the one that we talked about on that night where he hit the 2-9 darters, and he looked untouchable. Since then, he hasn't made a final, which is quite startling, really, when you think about it, because you just kind of, even when he has a bad week, you very rarely see him play badly, or you very rarely think that was a stinking night for Gerwin Price. Obviously, he had that withdrawal in Brighton, went out averaging 102 to MVG. So, look, he has been a little bit unlucky, but let's not forget Price's record in this Premier League before this year is like terrible. And it's a different Gerwin Price that we're dealing with these days, but you're not telling me he's not desperate to win this competition and put all of that to bed, because he had some really rotten experiences in this competition early in his career. And it is one of the only competitions where you're regularly playing the best of the best. There's no banana skins, no excuses. You might have your bad weeks and your good weeks, but ultimately, if you come up at the top of this table over 16 weeks, you can rightfully call yourself the best player on planet darts, really. So I think he'll be desperate to get back to a final. Cullen, as I say, who stands in his way, he was great, gritty last week, but he wasn't posting anything spectacular in the averages, 90, 92, and in something in the 80s as well. So he'll have to lift it, you would think. But that injury for Price, yeah, it does concern me. I wouldn't be confidently picking a winner in this. I could see it going nip and tuck, maybe a 6-5 either way job. And look, Cullen riding the crest of the wave last week of nicking 2 very close games against Anderson and Van Gerwen. Maybe he can nick this one as well.
Yeah, I would at the prices I'd prefer to be with Cullen. If you can get on possibly on the handicap with Cullen, possibly like even money plus one leg kind of thing.
Yeah, would agree with that.
And then you get and then you get something along those lines. It'd be 1.5 though, wouldn't it? But anyway, in the bottom half of the draw or the third quarter final, an all Scottish affair between two fellows who don't spend very much time in Scotland at all, but that's maybe one for another night. Peter Wright, the Snake, did not play in Germany over the weekend. He had a couple of days off against Gary Anderson, again, as we say, who just kicks off at every opportunity, it seems, at the moment. So Snake finds himself second in the league, Pieman. He's on 14 points, which is double the amount of points that Gary Anderson has got, despite Gary Anderson actually winning a night, and you get 5 points for that. So, yeah, very hit and miss from Gary so far this season.
Yeah, but I do like what I've seen from Gary in recent weeks. And look, he got annoyed when he lost to Joe Cullen last week, but he got annoyed because he knows he should have won that match. And it's good to see Gary Anderson playing with a bit of fire in the belly. He seems to have rediscovered some of his better darts in recent weeks, and he's a very dangerous man to discount. Peter Wright continues to be an absolute mystery to try and work out. One week he's averaging 110 plus in winning it and looking near untouchable. His other final, he averaged 87 and was whitewashed. So what do you say with Peter Wright? Trying to predict him week to week is an absolute nightmare. He's been pretty rotten on the Pro Tour recently. Normally he responds to these rotten runs by throwing in a day where he wins it, averaging 110 plus every game, and you go, oh yeah, Peter Wright, he's fine. But he has been pretty poor recently, and I would say Anderson is the form player of the two, to be honest. Like I say, got annoyed last week, but probably because he knows he should have won that game. The week before, he was absolutely fantastic when winning it. I thought I was really, really impressed with him on the Pro Tour. Even though he didn't win it, I thought it was one of the best individual performances I've ever seen on the Pro Tour day when he got to that final against Damon Heta, and Damo was outstanding as well. But Anderson had been averaging, I think his average for the day across 6 or 7 matches was 108, which is nearly unprecedented levels over a full day. So I'd be going with Gary Anderson in this. And these two, because they've played the World Cup together, because they've got this link with Scotland and this and that, it can be one of those games where at the end of it, they'll both be going like, we played crap. Even if they didn't, it's like, oh, we know we could play better. They're like, buzzing buddies. And I just think Anderson, it reminds me of the type of game that Anderson would win. When he beat Dave Chisnell in the World semi-final and Chizzy played awful and Anderson played awful and they both kind of like laughed it off. I could see something similar happening here. And I would be leaning with Anderson. I think they have met in a semi-final a couple of weeks ago where Anderson prevailed with 101 average for a 6-3 win. And I could see similar again.
You can get 13-8 Gary Anderson as the outsider of the two there. But I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record Pieman on Snake, but I think that he took his experimenting within this Premier League to the extreme this year. He played Van Gerwen in one of the earlier rounds and got walloped 6-1. And that was before Van Gerwen had won a night and had started to pick up in form. Might have been the start of Van Gerwen's picking up in form, but he had these darts that were horrendous. And he tried to stick with them. I'm not saying anything new that we don't already know about the Snake, but with it being non-ranking, with it being a different format this year where you could maybe scrape into the top 4 because he's still second. But it's just, I just think he's been using it as a bit of an experimental basis for new darts and setups, etc. And it's been clear to see. So as you say, one night he might turn up and be absolutely amazing, and then other nights he might turn up and be lucky to get one leg off Van Gerwen, like we saw a few weeks ago. Final quarter-final, Pieman, Clayton against Michael Smith. Clayton is the favourite here, but only just. And Michael Smith, this is the closest game of the night actually in terms of odds of the 4 quarterfinals. Michael Smith, I still think still been in form. I mean, we know the stories about him, what happened to him in the UK final, etc. But a close one, this one for me.
Yeah, as long as it's a quarter-final or a semi-final, it should be a close one. If it's a final, you do have your reservations over Michael Smith's mentality, but I don't want to knock him while he's down. Obviously, he's had a couple of close misses. That UK Open loss to Danny Noppert. What can we say about that? That must have really cut him deep. And he's had a couple of Premier League near misses as well. But he continues to sort of say the right things, believing that it will come. And I mean, he did have a bit of pop at Peter Wright, didn't he? That he'd made some jokey comment about him losing finals, and it clearly does impact him. But look, in these early rounds, he's extremely dangerous. We know he's going to score really well. If the doubles are going in, he's really, really tough to beat. Michael Smith, he really is, because he will outscore virtually anyone. Johnny Clayton won on week 2 really impressively. And this is the reigning Premier League champion, and he was brilliant all last year. Probably I think he got PDC Player of the Year. If he didn't, he certainly should have last year because he was outstanding. Started well, and he hasn't really done anything since. And I think we did have a brief conversation away from the videos about whether he had suffered a dip. I think that's a fair comment. I think he has suffered a little bit of a dip, but only a dip from the extremely high standards that he's been setting himself, almost unsustainable standards. And what I did like to see last week, although he lost in the semi-final, but prior to last week, we hadn't seen him post an average above 95 for 5 weeks. His 2 games last week, 98, 98, much more like the Johnny Clayton we know, rock solid, really good on his doubles. He had an off day on the doubles on the Pro Tour, but he's a bit of a rhythm player, Clayton. He'll get up there, and if he's played well the week before, I always fancy him to take that into the next week. And I liked what I saw last week. So it's all going to come down to doubles over the short format. Of course, Michael Smith and Johnny Clayton, we should say, had an absolute classic in the World Championships. So let's hope that they both play like that, and it'll be fireworks. But I can see why they can't really split them much in the prices, and maybe Clayton, but it wouldn't be with any confidence.
Right, so I'm going with 2 of the favourites and 2 of the outsiders in the quarterfinal. I'm going Van Gerwen, Cullen, Gary Anderson, and Clayton. So they're going to be the final 4. God knows what happens from there on in, Pieman. But you're the man with the predictions, particularly in the Premier League. So tell me who's going to prevail and make the final and win.
Yeah, well, as I say, I can't see Van Gerwen getting past Wade. I can't see Van Gerwen having too many problems with Wade. Joe Cullen Price a little bit trickier to call, but I think Van Gerwen will make the final regardless of which one of those two he plays. Then in the bottom half, I'm leaning towards Gary Anderson. I can see an MVG Gary Anderson final. I think Anderson, it's a perfect opponent for him first up against Wright. And yeah, I think he can. He's another momentum player, as we saw a couple of weeks ago. So MVG Anderson rolling back the years, and I will just edge with Van Gerwen on the form book.
I'm going to go similar to you, Van Gerwen and Clayton in the final. And just to be different, I'm going to say Clayton will win night number 8 in Birmingham. And that is wrapping up the preview for this week's Premier League preview. So, yeah, we're back with a bang. Pieman and Smido are here talking to you about all the darts. So stay tuned to Doubles and Trebles, where you're going to get all the darting content. And thanks for tuning in.